I'm at the centre of the Jersey universe again, in the Central Market with Darius Pearce, and we're going to discuss this election that's going on now. We're going to look at the senatorial angle about it. Now this is what the government tells us. The government says, if I can get it on there, you can change. Change is up to you. Vote. Is it? Who's it up to? What is change? Who wants change? Do any of these people want change? 17 candidates?
I think over the last few years we've seen that fear is a very great factor in elections. Fear of leaving Europe, the fear of Scottish independence, the fear of not having Hillary Clinton. And change can be fearful. It's better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Well, I quoted Sir Lamarck on the other day. His old saying was, Jersey is a politically stable refuge from funds arising on an international basis. That was the basis of the finance. And it is true. Jersey's political system never changed. Now, it's no longer there. The safe pairs of hands, they've gone. Most of them have gone. All of a sudden, there's a vacuum, isn't there?
Well, I think it's been a long, slow process since the Germans came. Back in the old days, everything used to be run at the parish level, and every member of the parish would go to the parish hall if they wanted to, go to the parish hall and make a decision on things like education, parish welfare. All of these things have gradually been taken away from the people and put into these centralised departments where we have less say in what happens. And obviously with the European law and Philip Ballash's initiative to have European laws put straight into Jersey law, Jersey was a wonderful place when the government attitude was, you can do whatever you like as long as it doesn't cost us a penny. That was the, if you read the old laws, that's how they're written.
And now we've got £1 billion hospitals, you know. What do you think? Let's have a look at some of these leaflets. What are they telling us, these people? What are they saying? Read between the lines.
Well, they're all very much of a muchness, really, aren't they? They're all saying they're going to support everyone. They're all saying that nothing's going to change, really.
Because they got to preserve finance, and if you change anything, finance is liable to get changed. So they don't want to change finance. They're stuck with it, aren't they?
Well, back in the 1970s when finance first came here, we were told that we won't have any more taxes. We're going to have the finance industry instead of tax. So we were sold a lie, and many people believed it, and gradually things have gotten worse, and now we're to the point where average tax is probably over 40% if you actually see how much you pay.
Well, lots of little taxes, which they don't call taxes anymore. There's a charge for this, charge for that.
Exactly. I was just reading Steve Pallas. Now, I'm probably going to vote for Steve, but one of the things he says here is diversification of our economy is essential if it is to grow and we are to create new jobs. Continued support needs to be given to Digital Jersey and Visit Jersey.
Well, they've been saying that for as long as I can remember. Diversification.
What exactly does Visit Jersey do for the tourism industry? Surely, I recently travelled to the City of London. I saw adverts from Flybe and I saw adverts from EasyJet, all promoting Jersey much more effectively than Visit Jersey. So maybe the money should be put into lowering airport charges, bringing in more carriers, and let them do their own advertising. Digital Jersey, how are we going to compete with people living in the Philippines who for £500 a month can live like kings with 6 wives, when you need to pay at least £3,000 to someone here and the skill set is not as good?
You're bang in the middle of St Helier, you get all sorts of people coming to your shop. Your shop is a jewellery shop, or that watches and jewellery. The stuff that was the keystone. King Street used to be full of jewellery shops, and people used to say, we've got so many, we don't know what to do with them all. What are the people who come into you saying now, the visitors, what do they say to you now?
Well, they all love the market, which is obviously something that was built in 1887 to Victorian standards. This is the number one tourist, the number one place for tourists.
Of course, it's free to come into, that's the first thing.
It's free to come into, all the stalls look beautiful, there's a great spread of fruit and veg and flowers, and a lot of individuals put a lot of effort into making this market what it is. And we don't really have any oversight from the government. It's more or less been left to run as it is, based as it is on an old law, and the basis of that law is, as long as it doesn't cost us a penny, we're happy.
But people used to come here for a holiday, they'd spend a week or 2 weeks even, and they'd trawl around for 2 weeks trying to find the biggest bargain, and on the last day they'd go and buy their duty-frees, take them back, and they thought they'd had a wonderful time. That's not happening now, surely?
Oh yes, it is. Yeah.
Is it?
Well, my business is still very much based on, you get your jewellery VAT free.
Right.
Obviously, if you're spending £5,000 or £10,000, the 20% that you're saving is substantial.
But they will get nabbed presumably when they land somewhere else where they've got VAT.
It's not my concern.
Not your concern, no. But they must know that they will have to pay it eventually if they play the game properly.
Do they? Do they know that?
I wonder.
Well, I mean, Heritage Jewellers is in the top 10 Rolex retailers in the world. So I don't know. Maybe they're all coming off yachts. I try not to ask too many questions of my customers. It's not my business.
Of course, all that could end under the great Brexit scheme. We don't know, but it could all end, couldn't it?
Well, as someone who does a lot of internet retailing, I do sell a lot, virtually to every single country in the world. It will affect my business, but it won't prevent my business. I will just have to adapt and overcome whatever the new measures that are put in place, just as we had to adapt and overcome when the UK removed the VAT loophole that allowed us to send out things under £17. We adapt and we overcome, and the business goes on, life goes on. Everybody's happy.
I haven't looked around the market today, but I don't suppose there's a political stall in there. Are they allowed to have a political stall? Somebody saying vote for me? Is that allowed in the market?
I wouldn't know. There's no reason you can't. It is a public market. It belongs to the public, and for the opening hours, as far as I'm concerned, the public can do as they wish within the law.
Right. The local public that come in here, what are they saying? I mean, obviously we know there's a huge number of people who just don't participate in elections.
Well, I think that number is going to increase this year, actually. I think there's less interest in this election than there ever has been. A lot of the people who would normally might have considered running for election have said, I'm not going to do it this year because this is the next 4 years is when all the problems are going to come out. And obviously we had a lot of the Council of Ministers standing down, possibly because they know the problems are coming up and they want to avoid them. So Ian Gorst clearly is the safe pair of hands, and if we're talking about the fear that's involved in elections, the fear of change, then he's probably going to benefit by being the only person who doesn't represent change.
If he's not, presumably if he's elected, and if he's not chosen as Chief Minister, can he carry on in the government which he's been the Chief Minister? I mean, that's a rather strange. Can he be the Chancellor in somebody else's government? Can he do that?
Well, do we want a dictator for life? That's the question. Do we want a dictator for life?
Well, it's just that the point is usually Prime Ministers usually disappear, don't they? They go to the House of Lords or they write a book.
Or they become like Ted Heath and cause all sorts of problems for Margaret Thatcher from the backbenches.
That's right.
They don't normally have a central prominent role in government, but I would... Just purely because he's already been Chief Minister for 2 terms and he's the first person ever to have done more than 1 term. I think if we get to 3 terms, we're then sort of getting into too much stability, shall we say.
I don't think I've got anything there from Sam Meswick. He's the only reform candidate amongst the senators. If he became elected and if he became a minister, how would that sit him with the rest of the reform party? Because he'll have to do what ministers have to do, won't he? He won't be able to carry out his reform manifesto.
I believe they've broken collective responsibility now.
In theory, you still got to have a council of ministers.
Would he accept a position on the council? I mean, I know that Jeff Southern, for example, often runs for Social Security Minister. Then you have the experience of Stuart Sivray and him coming on to the Council of Ministers. It's possibly the beginning of the end of his career because he wasn't. Then we have the question of, is Sam going to get elected in the first place? Reform tends to get a set level of votes every senatorial election. It doesn't change much, which is somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000. Is that going to be enough to get elected? Are they going to increase their vote? Is reform really change, or is it the same, just amplified?
There's a new power behind the throne in the shape of Charlie Parker. And he's proposing, most of it's been proposed before. Mr. Ogley proposed much of what he's proposing before. All the talk about silos and all the rest of it. But if he's going to have the sort of control that he wants for him and his friends, a lot of these, and it's going to be cut, because they're all about trying to save money. And if you get somebody like Sam Meswick, who is a minister, and he gets orders to cut, whereas his heart tells him he wants to spend more, what will happen? Will that be the end of him?
Well, have you ever known a civil servant to cut? have you not seen Yes Minister? And Sir Humphrey would often say, yes Minister, we can have some cuts, but first we're going to have to employ another 1,000 civil servants to work out how we're going to do it. And he's come in. He has offered redundancy to some people. Do we know how close those people were to retirement anyway? Were they within 3 to 6 months? And obviously he's brought his gang of 4 with him. And how many Charlie's Angels have been appointed? And is there any real saving there at all? Or is he just balancing the books by getting rid of some so his mates can come in?
Another creature has also been added to the ferment. That's commissioners. We've got a child's commissioner, and yes, that sounds like... But there are other commissioners, police and all sorts of organisations. The health minister wanted a commissioner with a huge Quango organisation headed by a commissioner for health. And you can see things getting sort of softened up for something else. But these commissioners are going to be almost untouchable. They're going to be almost like little ministers of their own.
Well, as we were talking about Visit Jersey and Digital Jersey before, and if you move it to a Quango, it's actually disadvantageous for us because these people don't work directly for us. So we can't go walk into Visit Jersey and say to Keith Beecham, how come you're over here? You're not doing very well. You've just had a massive promotion. Are you sure you really wanted this job? We can do that to civil servants, and the other thing about civil servants, because they work for us, they have to answer us. Obviously there is a process going on whereby not only do we not, as we used to have a direct involvement in a parish assembly on every single decision, and then we went to the civil service where it's people working for us. Now it's people working for us who appoint a body to do these things. It's just getting more and more. All the decision making is moving further away from us.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the parish assembly, because even the JEP editorial the other night was about getting rid of the constables, because yet again we've got 11 non-elected constables, as there was in the previous election, and obviously it's becoming so blatantly undemocratic. You can't carry on. But even the JEP realises that now.
Well, then in which case let's put the powers back to the parish assembly and put constables back to the parish assembly and let them actually have a job to do in the parish like they used to do, and let's us all personally take responsibility for what happens and get involved at that level, and not trust some English civil servant who's brought over.
I'm going to have to wind up, but there was one decision made the other day which Reform did bring forward about allowing non-British people to be standing for the states. I mean, it's such a mixed population that we've got here now, all nationalities here. I thought that was very perverse. What do you think? Do you think only British people should be elected?
Well, if those are the rules, I know that if I want to stand for election, then I need to be a British citizen. So if I want to stand for election, then first I have to take British citizenship. If I'm not a British citizen...
But the idea was to change that so they could relax it. Anybody who's lived here for their 2 years, 5 years, what was doing
I think you have to look at the oath of office. To have the oath of office, you have to swear loyalty to the Queen, to God, and to something else. So if you're not a subject of the Queen, then how can you swear loyalty to the Queen? Is your oath valid? I'm sure from a legal perspective there is a very, very good reason for it. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Anything else you want to tell me before we wind up?
Not really, no, just Phil Maguire.
Phil Maguire.
Phil Maguire.
That's interesting.
I think he's very much the understated candidate. He's got a lot to say. He ran before, and the collective investment fund, that was his idea that came into being after the last election that he ran in. And I think maybe people should listen a little bit closer to what he's saying and maybe consider giving him one of their votes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.